Texas. Most people think of open sky and cattle country, oil money and the Alamo, rodeos, highways that run straight for 200 miles and don't apologize for it. They think they know what Texas is. They don't. Texas is hiding a city that was erased from the map twice in the same decade. It is hiding a canyon where tourists come for the views and have no idea what happened on the ground beneath their feet. It is hiding a nuclear weapons facility 17 miles from a city of 200,000 people. And it is hiding the site of the deadliest natural disaster in American history. A place where up to 12,000 people died in a single night, and people still live there today. Texas is gorgeous, Texas is strange, and Texas, as it turns out, has an exceptionally long memory. This is dark geography. The state of Texas covers 268,000 square miles. It has more ghost towns than any other state in the country, more than 500 documented and an unknown number that never made it onto official records. It has coastline, desert, canyon country, swamp, and everything in between. It also has the kind of history that gets quietly reassigned, moved to the back of the chapter, given a paragraph instead of a page. Texas is a state with a deep instinct for reinvention. New town over the old one, new road through the canyon, new city on the coast. The problem with building over the past is that the past doesn't always cooperate. What follows is not a tourist itinerary. These are the places Texas would prefer you find some other way. On September 8, 1900, the Weather Bureau forecast for Galveston, Texas read, "Moderate northeast winds, partly cloudy." By midnight, between 8,000 and 12,000 people were dead. Galveston in 1900 was not a backwater. It was the largest city in Texas, the wealthiest city in Texas, the busiest port in the American South, handling more cotton exports than any other city in the Western Hemisphere. It had electricity, streetcars, and more millionaires per capita than almost anywhere in the country. It also sat on a barrier island at a maximum elevation of 8.5 feet above sea level. The hurricane that struck Galveston that September was a Category 4 storm, winds between 130 and 145 miles per hour, a storm surge that overwhelmed the entire island. Waves moving inland faster than a person could run. There was no seawall, there was no evacuation. The Weather Bureau had dismissed earlier warnings from Cuban meteorologists who had tracked the storm accurately, choosing instead to rely on their own projections. The island flooded in hours. Buildings collapsed under the surge. Families sheltering in their homes found themselves swept out to sea. The death count is still disputed. The low estimate is 6,000. The high estimate is 12,000. More than a third of the city's population, gone in one night. In the morning, bodies were piled on every street, washed against every building. The decision was made to load them onto barges and dump them in the Gulf. The Gulf returned them. Tidal action pushed the bodies back to shore within days. The city eventually resorted to mass cremation on the beach. It remains the deadliest natural disaster in United States history. No hurricane, no earthquake, no flood, nothing that has happened on American soil before or since has killed more people than one September night in Galveston, Texas. Today, Galveston has a seawall. It has 53,000 residents. 50 million tourists visit Texas every year. A significant number of them spend a day at the beach in Galveston. They are walking on ground that absorbed 12,000 of their fellow Americans in one night. Some anniversaries don't need a calendar. Before Galveston, there was Indianola. 40 years before Galveston was destroyed, Indianola was the second largest port in all of Texas, a thriving Gulf Coast city of several thousand people, a major entry point into the interior of the continent. the port through which tens of thousands of European immigrants arrived to begin their American lives. The port that received the United States Army's experimental shipment of camels in 1856, an attempt to use them as desert transport in the Southwest. In September of 1875, a hurricane struck Indianola. The storm surge drowned the lower half of the city. 300 people were killed. The docks were destroyed. The business district was gutted. Indianola rebuilt. In August of 1886, a second hurricane struck. This one made landfall almost directly on top of the city. The storm surge this time was higher. The damage was worse. A fire broke out in the wreckage, driven by the winds, and spread through whatever the water hadn't already taken. What was left of Indianola, Texas, burned. The survivors made a decision that the city of Galveston, 14 years later, would choose not to make. They left. There is no Indianola today, not a building, not a dock, not a street sign. The site is accessible by a county road that ends at a small historical marker and a stretch of Gulf shoreline. The water is calm there. The grass grows over what used to be a city. Underneath it, foundation, broken glass, the remnants of a population that tried twice and lost twice and finally understood what the Gulf was telling them. Whether you believe the Gulf has intentions or not, there is no question it has been consistent. 2 locations, thousands dead, a city erased from the map. We're not done. Subscribe if this is your first time here. We have 2 more places to show you, and the second one is still active. 2 hours southeast of Amarillo, there is a canyon that most Americans have never heard of. Palo Duro Canyon is 120 miles long, 20 miles wide in places, and drops 800 feet from the rim to the canyon floor. It is the second largest canyon in the United States. After the Grand Canyon, there is nothing else like it. Texas calls it the Grand Canyon of Texas. They are not wrong. Every year, visitors come to hike the trails, photograph the red rock formations, and watch the theatrical production, a musical called Texas, staged on an outdoor amphitheater on the canyon floor during the summer months. They eat at the gift shop. They buy the postcards. On September 28, 1874, Colonel Ranald S. Mackenzie led the United States 4th Cavalry down the canyon walls at dawn and attacked the largest remaining free encampment of Comanche, Kiowa, Cheyenne, and Arapaho people in North America. The attack was a surprise. The people scattered. Most survived the initial assault. What the cavalry did next was not about killing people. They burned the villages. Every winter food supply, every shelter, everything that would have allowed these families to survive the coming months. Then they rounded up the horses. More than 1,100 horses were driven to the edge of the canyon and slaughtered, shot and stabbed and pushed off the rim, because without horses, the Comanche Nation could not fight, could not hunt, could not travel. Without horses, they had no choice but the reservation. That calculation was correct. Within months, the last free bands of the Southern Plains had surrendered. The Red River War was over. The canyon floor where this happened is now a state park with a gift shop and a paved parking lot. Locals in Amarillo have reported for over a century hearing horses at night near the canyon rim, hoofbeats with no source. The sounds documented independently by ranchers, campers, and park staff. Science writes it down. Science just doesn't always publish what it finds. The canyon is gorgeous. That is not in dispute. What is also not in dispute is that 1,100 animals were killed on this ground in a single morning as an act of deliberate military strategy. The land absorbed it. The land doesn't say much about it, but it remembers. 17 miles northeast of Amarillo, Texas, there is a facility that sits on 16,000 acres of flat panhandle land. It is surrounded by perimeter fencing. There are guard towers. There are restricted airspace designations that extend for miles in every direction. It is called the Pantex plant. Pantex is the only facility in the United States where nuclear weapons are assembled. It is also the only facility in the United States where nuclear weapons are disassembled. Every nuclear warhead in the American arsenal has passed through Pantex. Everything that goes together comes apart there. The facility handles plutonium pits, the fissile cores of nuclear weapons, and on a daily basis. It was built in 1942, originally as a conventional munitions plant for World War II. After the war, it was decommissioned. In 1951, the Atomic Energy Commission, predecessor to the Department of Energy, reclaimed it for nuclear weapons work. The local population was not widely informed of the transition. In 1996, Pantex was placed on the EPA's National Priorities List. A Superfund site, soil contamination, groundwater contamination, hazardous chemicals from decades of operations had migrated into the perched groundwater beneath the facility, beneath the Texas Panhandle, above the Ogallala Aquifer, the underground reservoir that supplies drinking water to 8 states and irrigates roughly 30% of all groundwater-fed agricultural land in the United States. The EPA and the Department of Energy have been in a documented, ongoing remediation process since the early 1990s. The 5-year review reports continue. The contamination is described as currently below regulatory standards. That phrase appears in the official documents, currently below regulatory standards. There is also the question of the plutonium pits. Pantex stores dismantled weapons-grade plutonium components on site because there is nowhere else to put them. As of the most recent public disclosures, the Department of Energy has been unable to identify a state willing to host a permanent storage facility for the material. And so it remains in Texas, in the Panhandle, 17 miles from 200,000 people, above an aquifer that 8 states depend on. The facility is not secret. It is plainly visible on satellite maps. The Pantex website exists and is publicly accessible. That is, in some ways, the strangest part. The most consequential nuclear facility in America is in Amarillo, Texas. It has been there for over 70 years. Most Americans could not tell you it exists. Science writes it down. Science just doesn't always publish what it finds. Texas has 30 million residents. It gets 267 million tourist visits every year. They come for the barbecue and the live music and the hill country and the coast. Most of them have never heard of Indianola, the port city erased from the map twice and abandoned to the Gulf. Most of them don't know that the deadliest night in American history happened on a beach that people still vacation on. Most of them hike Palo Duro Canyon without knowing the canyon floor is the site of the act that ended a civilization. And most of them have no idea that 17 miles outside Amarillo, America's only nuclear weapons assembly facility, sits above a contaminated aquifer serving 1/3 of the country's farmland. Not the Texas on the postcards, not the Texas in the travel guides. The version that was here before the tourists. The version that will be here long after. Texas is gorgeous, Texas is strange, and Texas, as it turns out, has an exceptionally long memory. Subscribe if you want more of this. Next time, we're leaving Texas entirely. Where should we go? Leave it in the comments. We're always listening.